We are going to have fun today figuring out how a butterfly on a flower near a septic tank, a failure to follow instructions, even if it was told to you 15 times and in three different color highlighters, and a workplace betrayal all lead up to that horrible feeling of not wanted and then finding your inner person to belong to your own tribe. Well, hello, darling, and welcome to the Just Jax podcast. Hi, I'm Jax, and I help you find the can in your cat. When we challenge our cats, miracles happen, because when I challenged mine of I can't draw, I can't paint, and I can't color, imagine my surprise when I discovered what I can do is create a 21-foot garden mural that was recently featured not once but twice on the front page of our local newspaper. Next up, I challenge the I'm no author, no artist, and no cursive writing specialist, but what I can do is self-publish 3 books for my kick-ass cursive writing curriculum, Crack the Cursive Code. I'm a jack of all trades, but what I master in is helping ordinary people like me to do extraordinary things through laughter, tears, life-changing stories, because metaphors are my jam. Together we can find the can in your can'ts, the do's in your don'ts, and the wills in your won'ts. I'm so excited for you. Let's go. Well, hello, my darlings, and welcome back to the Just Jax podcast. Or if you're new here, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are on part 3 of the Adopt a Not series. And what I mean by adopt a not is that there is a philosophy, a paradigm, a mindset, a strategy that you have adopted from your environment that clearly is doing you a disservice and making your life miserable. And I believe that those paradigms are knots. In episode 1 of this series, we had about not seen, where you're invisible to your environment. And episode 2 is not safe and how you can find your own sense of safety. And in episode 3 today, we're going to talk about not wanted. And this is a real, real punch in the gut for me. If you have felt the outcast, ugly duckling, or just feeling unwanted, this is the episode for you because I've been there and I felt that. And my butterfly experience has been quite the struggle to get out of that cocoon and learn who I am and find my voice. And I'm hoping that this episode and these stories will help you find yours. There are 2 parts to this episode in regards to being not wanted that I think need to be discussed. And I believe this 2 parts will free you, as it has freed me, from the need to feel wanted and to actually create your own tribe. When you think of whether or not you're wanted, the most important lesson I know when it comes to being wanted is to recognize value. I have a dear girl who I would say is very undervalued in what she brings to the table. And I've had the pleasure of getting to know her and recognizing her value. And we are friends on Facebook. She posted a picture of this dahlia, and dahlia are these beautiful flowers. There's so many different kinds of varieties. Her type of dahlia has more of like a finger type petals. They're quite spaced far apart. And on it is a butterfly that is almost the size of the dahlia. And the dahlia is a good 3 to 4 inches wide. And this butterfly's wingspan is that wide. It's absolutely breathtaking. And she posted with the picture, "I don't even like those dahlias, but if they help the butterflies, I guess I need to plant more." This is where the question of value comes in, because to her, those flowers have absolutely no value whatsoever. And now, because a butterfly has decided that that is a place to live and grow and deemed worthy, those dahlias went from absolutely no value to instant value because of someone else's perspective. Which means that if you are in a situation where you are being treated poorly, it is because they see no value in you. But a simple shift in perspective can show you your true value, like the butterfly did to the dahlia. And it gets even better because I responded, "Disliked by one and worshiped by the other." Excellent metaphor for what we look at in life. Thank you, butterfly, for showing us value. And she goes, "Does it help if I tell you they're thriving next to the sewage tanks and that's why I don't like them?" Again, these wonderful little plants are growing in absolute shitty area, both figuratively and literally. And yet they bloom where they're planted. And because of their location and who they are, my friend saw absolutely no beauty in them, no use for them, nothing. And my answer was, yet, despite being planted in a shitty spot, you can still bloom. And that is my hope, that you can bloom where you're planted and take the shit in your life and turn it into fertilizer so you can do so. And wait, it gets better. I didn't even plant them there, she said. That's the worst bit. I had all of my dahlias in my driveway garden, and by the next year, whatever was eating the tubers decided to stash some there, and every year since it gets bigger, and I just let it because it hides the sewage tanks. And look at that. So it was uprooted from its original place, uprooted from a beautiful environment, uprooted by hands that love them, uprooted in a space where they were designed to grow and flourish and be on display, uprooted to the most shitty place in the yard and grew there. And it took a butterfly, something small, but yet has the most powerful effect to show us this lesson in value. One of the problems that you may be having in your life, my dear lovely, is the fact that you're undervalued. If you take $1,000 bill, if they do have them, or even $100 bill, those are a little bit more believable, and you can do whatever you want to it. You can fold it, you can make it into origami, you can crumple it, you can even rip it and tape it back together, and it is still $100 bill. But if you give $100 bill to someone who has no idea what $100 bill is, they could treat it like crap. They could use it for toilet paper. But does that change the value of the $100 bill? Absolutely not. You, my friend, the problem is that you are undervalued. And once you discover that you have a value, that you are worth much more, one of the biggest problems I can see is the failure to recognize that there are people or situations in your environment that show you value. I get told every day, some way, shape, or form, of how good I look, how much I contribute to the team, how awesome I am, how smart I am, all these different little things. And you can decide whether or not you use them to increase your value or you listen to the voices that decrease your value. And believe me, those voices can be really strong, and you could be really stuck in your ways of accepting the fact that you have no value. Because this may sound hard to hear, but it is easier to listen to the voices that keep you stuck and small and less value than to make some changes and start to listen to the other voices that tell you that you have worth. Because in order to feel that you're wanted, you have to want yourself. And all of the areas that you dislike in yourself, some of them are yours to tackle and deal with, but some of them are borrowed. And that's the part of the knot that you give back. And they can take their incorrect value level and shove it. My son had the opportunity to test his worth when he was given explicit instructions 15 times prior to the job and 3 times on the work order stating, "Do not fuck up the grass." He had the privilege of doing a job on the military museum in the city of Calgary. If you've ever been there, they have these planes on display as a monument to the armed services that have helped that country stay safe. If you want to learn more about how to feel safe within your own skin, listen to my second episode in this series called Not Safe. But he was commissioned as the shop foreman to take his equipment to unsink the planes. As luck would have it, when he arrived on the job site, Calgary is known for its storms. I live in the Pacific Northwest now, and I realize the difference between raining and storms. Raining is where you can have consecutive days of rain, all different types of rain, from the nuisance spit to the torrential downpour. And when they say that there's a 40% chance of rain, that means that you're going to have rain for 40% of your day, not that there's a 40% chance, like a 40% chance to win some kind of prize. It's a guarantee that you're going to have 40% rain. Where in Calgary, you get all of your 40% rain in a matter of hours, or the clouds part, and it just dumps down. And there were pictures in the sky on the news about how this storm held the water and what it was going to unleash on the city of Calgary. And my son was commissioned to do this job during that time. The rain started to fall, but as the problem solver that he is, he decided, first of all, to try and see if the skid steer would do anything to move these planes. Well, he took one small attempt and made some divots in the grass, already violating the do not fuck up the grass mandate. Next, he consulted with a gentleman we'll call Dan the Man, and Dan was one of the veterans on site. As well as this job's foreman. And basically what Dan said went. So Morgan looked over at Dan and asked him, "Do we bring in the crane?" Now, mind you, a little side note of information that you may have to understand is that this crane also was pulling a trailer that had 28,000 pounds. So 14 tons of weight as a counterweight just in case the planes were too heavy. And Morgan looked over at Dan, and Dan's answer was, "Fuck it, let's do it." Sure, take the crane out. Morgan consulted with the owner of the crane, and the owner of the crane directed the crane operator to drive the crane out there. And they parked it to consider what plan of attack they would take to doing this job. Happy with what they decided, the crane operator then jumped back into the crane, turned it on, and found out that the crane was also stuck as the clouds of heaven opened up and dumped everything it had on that job site. Do not fuck up the grass. So Morgan had to call the heavy duty tow truck, get the tow truck to go and move the crane. But because it had the 28,000-pound counterweight, it was too stuck. So my son then had to go and unload the 28,000-pound, wrecking the grass with the skid steer to move the counterweight, get the huge, huge tow truck to move the crane. As you can imagine, the tow truck struggled to get the crane out of the grass. It had to take its anchoring 6-foot deep arms and put it into the ground. The crane was so heavy that it made trenches 6 inches deep, 12 inches wide in the grass. Do not fuck up the grass. My son showed me pictures. There were ruts of mud a good 20 to 30 feet wide, and maybe about a good 100 feet long of their attempt to get the crane unstuck. Now, there were 11 hours charged to that crane, which can go from anywhere to $300 an hour up. The crane operator, the tow truck operator, Morgan, and everyone else that was sent to fix that job. And the best part about it was that they never fixed the problem. So that entire bill, plus fucking up the grass, was reported to the manager. And my son showed up the next day and was somewhat concerned. But Dan the man gave Morgan such a glowing review on how he handled the job that all was forgiven despite this huge bill of absolute bullshit, because they accomplished nothing other than royally fucking up the grass. And the reason that Morgan knew and had that sense of confidence is because he knew his worth, and he knew that he did everything that he could. And regardless of what his manager said or did, he knew that he did the best that he could given the directions that he was given. And to have that kind of confidence comes from recognizing your worth. And to start recognizing your worth, best to listen to my episode 2 on building your can'ts and your small little wins. When you build on the things that you win on a daily basis, you are then strengthening that muscle where you can start to recognize your worth. But just like the plane, sometimes you can be treated in such a horrible way because despite all of those efforts to try to get you to be unstuck, you want to stay in your mindset of having no value. And you continuously want to go back to these situations, whether or not it be a relationship. Oh, I've done that too. Oh my God. I went back to the same person almost the third time, and there was a complete chaotic turn in order to turn that around. But you can return back to the place that you felt somewhat safe and wanted, and that be the worst thing for you. And that is my third story here of workplace betrayal. When I came from Canada, I was specializing in bankruptcy. I guess to a degree, both personally, because of the relationship I was in, but also professionally. And I was on the fast track to becoming an insolvency trustee because you could work your way through with schooling, etc., to get that degree. And I loved that idea. But when I came down to the United States, your bankruptcy system is very different than ours. And so, because of that, my skills were less transferable. In order to find a job down here, I had to go back into my customer service roots and was able to get a job at a call center for a medical clinic. And I thrived there. I absolutely loved it there. I was there for 4.5 years. I was the one who did most of the training. I was basically the mom of the group. And I had made some errors there in failing to recognize my worth because I was brighter and bigger in character and capability than my managers at the time knew what to do with. The time came where I became bored and an opportunity came up to go to a different department. And when you work at a call center, you are working on behalf of the clinics and you are acting as if you work at the clinic. But there was a failure in the design of the system to properly train the call center and actually what happens in a clinic, and the training that they got was a visit once to the clinics to see what they looked like. When I moved over in my job to work in a clinic to become the lead receptionist of this building that had 11 different clinics as well as family medicine, all operating out of the same front desk, I decided to take on that responsibility and was excited that I thought I could become the bridge between the call center and the clinics to make it the most amazing place ever because I put my heart and soul into that place. I was basically known as the queen of the call center. In fact, one time when they were attempting to reconcile the differences between the clinic and the call center, they asked me to come in to speak on the call center's behalf on what protocols can be done. And they also asked me to come and shadow the clinic because I understood the call center the best. Because the managers that they decided to pick for the call center never did the job. And I found that that was the worst part of the experience because they could never give the support for they never knew what it meant to deal with the patient in that level. Sure, some of the nasty patients got escalated to them, but on the day to day of dealing with these people, they never had to experience. And I did. So, because I built such a relationship with the clinics and I built a relationship with the team, I was a natural liaison, but it did cause some conflicts with the management because I was the go to person instead of them. So it was almost like good cop, bad cop. I got all the good stuff and they got all the nasty stuff. Well, as things would have it, the manager decided to move out of state and they were going to offer the position of the manager to the public. And I applied for the job and I interviewed for it. And I made the mistake of saying that I would improve, or no, I didn't say improve. I said I would fix it. And I could feel the energy change in my manager. And she was offended by that. I had no idea how big that was going to play out until later. So, fast forward about a year, I am absolutely enjoying my job as a lead receptionist, but our company made some decisions that really affected one of my friends. And it was very difficult for me to see her go through that experience. She had a life threatening illness that was brought on by the stress of the job. Well, that's our theory anyway. And then there was some ability to be able to fire her during that leave. And that sounds very difficult to do, but there are ways to do it and they found a way to do it. And she was eliminated and she was one of my safe people and it really scared me because I was unsure of what my future was going to look like in that position. So I went back and I thought I would ask if I could go back to the call center and work for them. I figured since I had all of this information, I would be a great help. So I applied for the job, and the supervisor that I had a little bit of struggle with interviewed me, and she basically was quite professional about it, but she said that I would be too big of a disruption to come back, and they refused me to come back. even though I worked in a different department, the team still referred to me and asked me for questions over their supervisor, her to be specific. Fast forward 2 more years later, and finally the supervisor found a different job and the position came open, and I was the perfect person for the job. For I had that experience plus the frontline experience. And when you are an internal candidate with seniority, you get priority over other people. And this is because of union rules, etc. So I was super excited because I thought finally I would be able to get into the call center and I would be able to do the job. I went through the process. The original manager was still there, even though she was living remotely, which caused a huge disservice, in my opinion, to the department and being able to build a team when you're in a different time zone. But we had a interview over Zoom, which I thought went really well. But I knew something was afoot because I have connections still to people that worked in the call center. And one of the leads of the call center was a very anxious woman. And she showed absolutely no anxiety about getting a new supervisor at all. And so I knew that there was something oddly weird that was happening because she would have shown signs of some type of stress. In fact, when I went there, she looked happier than she'd ever been. And this supervisor that left was someone that she really liked. So it wasn't that she was happy that the supervisor was gone. Next thing you know, they decide that they're going to interview me again formally. So the supervisor that I had problems with, plus another woman, decided to do the interview. The woman that the manager that was out of state left it to these two. They did a formal interview, like asked me all the weird questions. I thought I rocked the interview and did really well, to only find out that they hired internally. They went with a woman that was inside the call center when the rule was, when I was there, that there were no promotions from within. They had to come from without. And so all of that was done to shun me anyway. I never got the job. And the woman that took the job, her and I used to have coffee all the time. And she's been working there for, I think, almost a year now. And you know what? She's never reached out to me since then or asked to get together for coffee. So to me, that is all suspect and sketch. And I no longer consider her a friend, for she never talked to me during this process. She must have known or knows now that I applied for the job, but that relationship is now over. On top of that, the job that I was at, that I gave my heart and soul to and really had my worth recognized by the people that I worked with, my manager decided to show me in her way that she no longer recognized my worth and what I was able to do. The front line had an office in the back where that's where we did some of our work, as well as we had our time together to build as a team and away from the front. And she was directed by management above her that office area was supposed to be taken over by her. And she came into the room, didn't even give me eye contact or a heads up of what was going on, criticized everything about the room and how messy it was and how this had to go and that had to go, and that they were making an announcement that they were taking the room over. One of the biggest rubs about that is that my desk was also in that room, and she had all of the desks changed to no longer allow me to have a desk there. And that when they had the room, I was to be somewhere else. And we had more employees than we had desks. So I was booted basically out of everything. There were some other little things that showed me that, but I just decided that I needed to go somewhere that I was shown my worth. And I am happy to report that I left that position and I'm now in a new position that was a little uncomfortable in the beginning, but in this last week, I have been shown of how blessed and I've gotten the exact job that I've always wanted to have, that allows me to have the freedom and the ease in which to be able to work and my podcast, for it's giving me a lot of mental freedom with great medical benefits. But the lesson I want you to really see about these stories, because when I was told I was a disruption, that really rocked my heart because I knew what I was offering and they dismissed my value. They had no use for how valuable I was. Then the second time when I was there to be the supervisor, I knew that I would be able to make the change to save that department, and I knew that I would be able to draw people and build the team. But that again was something that they chose to dismiss and go a different direction. But did that lessen my value? No, but it did have to give me a painful showing that I needed to go somewhere to find my value. So I was told this week at work that I am forbidden to go anywhere, that she has finally got the team that she wants to build the team that she wants, and I'm part of that team. So I got to be there, totally being myself, doing what I'm doing, and getting the dream position that I want to be able to work on the next chapter of my life, to make that transition as easy as possible. But sometimes you have to be shown how badly you're not wanted so that you will make the move. Like the plane, sometimes you could be so stuck in where you are in being not wanted that you truly start to believe that you're not wanted, instead of that being a way to show you that you've finally outgrown where you are and that it's time to be something different and change your environment to where you are. Like the flowers that came in the first example, you could be in a situation where you're in the driveway and you're getting all that you need from that area. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're moved to something else and they're in a horrible experience. But honestly, you are moved because you are meant to bloom somewhere else. And like the dahlia bloomed where they were despite their location and despite what anyone thought. And now the value came later. Like for you, this horrible things that you may be going through may be something telling you that it's time for you to make some type of move. And the move could be simply recognizing your value. And as you recognize your value, if you see your environment trying to dismiss that value, you realize that it's time to move. Because I found out when my manager no longer wanted to appreciate me, it was time for me to go somewhere to where I would be appreciated. And I found that. And I continue to surround myself with places that appreciate me and show me how much value I have. So, to recap this episode, my darlings, you have value. First of all, if you're looking for the outside of yourself to have value, that is what's tripping you up. Your value comes from within, and to milk the situations that show you value. They can be super simple. It could be a random person complimenting you. It could be something in your heart that tells you that you did a good job. It could be a simple thing on your phone where you're a winner. I am the type of person that has value. Anytime you have anything in your life that shows you that you're worth something, you need to turn on that muscle to show you more. Even if there is only one situation in the day that you recognize to show you value, it is a recognition problem and never a value problem. You are recognizing all the things that show you that you have no value instead of recognizing the things that show you you do. My favorite statement is I am the type of person. I learned this from Brenda Johnston. Episode 14, I believe, is the episode where I interview her. This affirmation has changed my life and is the backbone of my episode 2 of building your cans. You need to start building the things that increase your value. And that is through sayings that your subconscious mind will accept. Like, I am the type of person. When you have someone say that you look good, that is the moment to milk it for every fucking thing it has. I'm the type of person who looks good. I'm the type of person who has people tell them they look good. I am the type of person that can look good on a day when I feel like shit. I'm the type of person that can take a compliment. I'm the type of person that can feel good about themselves. I'm the type of person that is building my value. Look at how many I'm the type of person things I can get from one simple incident. That is the muscle you need to build, is the I'm the type of person muscle. Instead of I'm the type of person who gets ripped off, and I'm the type of person who people treat like shit, or I'm the type of person that people are rude to, or I'm the type of person that no one likes. Why would you set that up for success and continue having that as your narrative? I'm the type of person who people want to be around. I'm the type of person who is building their own tribe. I'm the type of person who loves to be me. Even if it's only for a flash second, you've done it once. In the positive, you've done it before. You're the type of person. You can take that moment and redefine yourself. Well, thank you, my lovelies. We have reached the end of this episode. And in our next episode is going to be Not Enough, where I have an Oxford lawyer, a rude patient, and a antisocial gathering teach me that I am enough. You can reach out to me through Facebook or Instagram, or by email at justjackspodcast@gmail, or at hashtag justjacks at Reddit. There are many ways to find my cursive writing curriculum, Crack the Cursive Code. You can order the books on Amazon or Barnes & Noble online. You can get the PDFs as well as my kick-ass merchandise of Loser, Forthwith, or Shift on crackthecursivecode.com. It's been an absolute pleasure spending this time with you. Remember, you can take the shit that comes in your life and you can fertilize it and bloom where you're planted. Love you. Jacks out.